The wind howled through the crumbling ruins of what was once a proud cityscape. Nature had started reclaiming the land, ivy twisting around broken skyscrapers, deer tiptoeing past abandoned cars, and silence reigning over places that used to roar with life. But this silence was not peace. It was the quiet before the growls. 23-year-old Reese Dalton moved like a shadow through the streets of former Denver, now called Zone Red. He pressed against the cold stone wall of an old train station, peeking through a shattered window. His eyes scanned the alleyways carefully. The infected were near, he could feel it in his gut. A low groan echoed somewhere down the street. He ducked back, clutching the handmade blade strapped to his side. 3 years had passed since the outbreak. The government had collapsed. What remained of the military now operated in fragments, divided into camps, some still loyal to protecting civilians, others only protecting themselves. The cities were overrun, communications lost, and most people believed there was no hope. But Reese had heard something. 2 nights ago, he intercepted a coded signal on an old military radio he salvaged from an abandoned outpost in the mountains. The voice had been weak, nearly swallowed by static, but it was there. A woman. Confident. She spoke of a location, Black Rock Base. Hidden deep within the Rocky Mountains. "We're rebuilding," she had said. "The fight isn't over. If you can hear this, come." For Reese, that was enough. He had seen too much loss, his mother gone in the early days, his little brother turned before his eyes, and his hometown burned to ash. But he had survived, not just by hiding, but by fighting. And now, if there truly was a group out there fighting back, he had to find them. As he made his way through the city ruins, Reese picked up supplies from a hidden cache behind a movie theater. A few canned goods, a flashlight, a map with hand-drawn notes, and an old photo of a resistance group he'd once crossed paths with, before they were all wiped out. His next step was to find Brooks, a grizzled former soldier known for his skill with weapons and his deep knowledge of old military facilities. Reese hadn't seen Brooks in over a year, but last he heard, the man had fortified an old ranger station north of the city. Getting there meant crossing Zone Red, a stretch infested with both roamers and something worse, runners. These infected didn't stumble and moan. They moved fast. Silent until they struck. Intelligent enough to set ambushes. That night, Reese lit no fire. He set up camp on a rooftop, wrapping himself in a weathered thermal blanket and listening closely to the night air. His ears twitched at distant footsteps, too fast to be human, too erratic to be animals. The infected were evolving. At dawn, Reese quietly descended and continued his journey, sticking to alleys and overgrown backroads. He avoided major roads where the larger hordes tended to drift, guided by instinct or sound. Halfway to the ranger station, he noticed something strange, a series of bright orange symbols painted on walls and signs. They weren't random. They were markers, possibly made by survivors. One arrow pointed toward a tunnel under the old freeway. Reese hesitated. It could be a trap. But it could also be a shortcut, and in this world, time was survival. With his blade in hand and flashlight off, he stepped into the dark. The tunnel reeked of mildew and decay. Water dripped from the ceiling. Each step echoed softly, swallowed quickly by the darkness. Reese paused at a rusted maintenance door. A sound came from the other side. Not groaning, talking. Human voices. He leaned in closer. "It's tonight. They're moving the weapons up to the station. If the undead don't take them out, the old man will." Reese's heart pounded. Weapons? Brooks? Whoever these people were, they were preparing for something big. Suddenly, the door burst open. Reese scrambled back, nearly tripping. A figure emerged, a young woman, armed, face covered in a scarf. She saw him instantly. "Who are you?" she demanded, raising her weapon. I'm looking for Blackrock Base, Reese said without hesitation, hands raised. I'm not infected. The girl's eyes narrowed. A few more emerged from the tunnel, 3 men and another woman, all armed and cautious. You're either crazy or brave, the girl muttered. Either way, you've just stepped into something bigger than you can handle. Reese met her gaze. I want to fight back. I want in. The girl studied him for a long second. Then she lowered her weapon. Then follow me. And with that, Reese took his first real step into the fight to take back America. Would you like me to continue with part 2 now? The tunnel twisted for what felt like miles. Reese followed the group deeper underground, the dim glow of their lanterns flickering against the cracked concrete walls. The air was thick with dampness and silence, broken only by the occasional distant rumble, whether from collapsing structures above or something worse. No one spoke of it. The young woman who had found Reese led the way. She moved with precision, her steps quick but quiet. Eventually, she stopped at a large steel door covered in rust and burn marks. She tapped a rhythm on the surface, 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. From inside, mechanical gears groaned and the door slowly slid open. Beyond it lay a makeshift base, dimly lit with solar lanterns, lined with salvaged technology and stocked shelves. At least 30 people filled the underground room. Some wore military gear, others were in patched civilian clothing. But all had the same hardened look, survivors. This is Outpost Ember, the girl said. One of the last functioning resistance cells in this region. Reese looked around, taking in the operation. Old computers hummed softly, radios buzzed, and maps were pinned with colored markers. In one corner, a group of engineers worked on a repurposed drone. Another group cleaned weapons, rifles, knives, and something Reese hadn't seen in a long time, grenades. I'm Kale, the girl added. I lead this cell. You're the one who sent the broadcast? Reese asked. Kale nodded. But not alone. There's more like us, spread across what's left of the country. Blackrock Base is the nerve center. We're trying to reach it. But we can't do that until we clear the way, and we've hit a wall. As if on cue, an older man emerged from a nearby chamber. He had a thick beard, graying hair, and sharp, assessing eyes. His right arm was wrapped in a reinforced exosleeve, military grade, likely from before the fall. He studied Reese for a long moment. Name's Commander Brooks. Used to serve with the 71st Infantry before everything went to hell, he said gruffly. Kale says you want to fight. That true? Reese nodded. I intercepted your signal. I believe in this. Brooks gave a grunt of approval. We need believers. Most gave up. Turned on each other. But if we're gonna reclaim this land, we need more than hope, we need strategy. He led Reese to a map marked with a red circle. This was Fort Silo, a hidden military depot built underground. Still has untouched armories, maybe even prototype tech. But it's been overrun for months. Something's different there. Smarter. The infected are changing. We call them whispers, they move in silence and react like they remember who they were. Reese felt a chill. Brooks continued, we've been sending scouts to survey the place. Only one made it back alive. Barely. Said the whispers were guarding the depot, like it's sacred. We need what's in that depot, Kale added. Supplies, weapons, data, everything. It might be our only way to connect with Blackrock Base and launch a real counterattack. Reese didn't hesitate. Then let's take it back. Brooks gave him a sharp look, then nodded. Good. You leave at dawn with Kale and the strike team. But listen carefully, this mission isn't just dangerous. It's a test. You make it through Fort Silo, you earn your place in the fight for this country. That night, Reese sat by a small table in the corner of the outpost. Kale joined him, handing over a ration bar and a bottle of purified water. "You surprised me," she admitted. "Most loners out there are either broken or dangerous." Reese gave a faint smile. "I'm just tired of running." She looked at him closely. "Then you might be exactly what we need." Outside, the storm winds howled above the tunnel. But within Outpost Ember, plans were unfolding. A new resistance was forming. And tomorrow, they'd march into a place where death didn't just walk, it watched and waited. Would you like me to continue with part 3? At first light, the strike team assembled in silence. There were 6 in total: Reese, Kale, 2 scouts named Juno and Keller, a demolitions expert called Riggs, and Wes, a quiet tech specialist with mismatched armor and a nervous habit of checking his drone every 2 minutes. The air above ground was heavy with morning mist, curling like ghosts over the cracked pavement. Reese adjusted the strap on his blade and slung a salvaged rifle over his shoulder. His heart beat steady, not from fear, but anticipation. This was more than survival. It was purpose. They moved through the wilderness for hours, avoiding open roads and passing abandoned outposts overrun with vines and silence. Twice, they paused to let a herd of infected shuffle past. One of them, its face barely human, turned its head toward them as if sensing their presence. But it did not break from the group. "They don't just wander anymore," Kale whispered. "They patrol." By dusk, the team reached the outskirts of Fort Silo. To the untrained eye, it looked like a collapsed stretch of highway surrounded by hills. But Kale led them through a camouflaged path until they found the hidden entrance, a half-buried bunker door protected by rusted steel and concrete. "This is it," she said. "Once we're inside, we don't know what we'll face." Riggs moved forward, inspecting the electronic lock. "Still has juice," he murmured. "If we had time, I could hack it. But I think a charge will do the trick faster." "Make it quiet," Kale warned. Riggs nodded and got to work. A minute later, a soft hiss, a spark, and the door creaked open. Inside, Fort Silo was swallowed in darkness and decay. The smell of damp metal and rot hit them instantly. The lights were dead, but Wes launched a small hovering drone with a built-in spotlight, guiding them through tight corridors lined with crates and shattered glass. Everything felt too quiet. Keller whispered, "Why would infected guard this place?" No one answered. They reached a control room partially caved in from a past explosion. Screens flickered with static, but Wes managed to patch into one console. "Still has partial access," he said. "Looks like something wiped the drives, but, wait, there's a log entry. Dated 6 weeks ago." Kale leaned in. "Play it." Wes clicked the command. A recording crackled to life. "This is Lieutenant Cross. Fort Silo is lost. Not to the virus. To them. They're not just infected anymore. They're thinking. Waiting. I saw one look at me like it knew me. We tried to burn the lower levels. It wasn't enough. If anyone hears this, seal the silo. Do not go down there." The message ended in static. The room fell still. Then came the noise, a faint clink, like something tapping metal. Riggs lifted his weapon. "We've got company." From the hallway behind them, shadows shifted. A figure stepped into the edge of the drone's light. It looked human, eyes alert, posture precise, but the skin was pale and cracked, and its movements were too calm. Deliberate. "Contact," Kale whispered. But the figure didn't charge. It simply tilted its head, watching them, as if curious. Then it tapped the wall with its fingernail again, clink, 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 and retreated into the dark. "That was a whisper," Reese muttered. "It didn't even growl." "They study us," Juno said. "They're learning." Suddenly, alarms blared from the drone, motion sensors spiking in every direction. We're surrounded. Wes shouted. Cale barked, fall back to the main corridor. Riggs, cover the rear. The team sprinted down the hallway as shapes poured from the vents, from broken doors, from the very walls, faster, smarter, and silent. Reese fired into the mass, aiming not just to kill, but to slow them. Keller tossed a flash charge behind them, buying seconds. They barely made it back to the surface. As Riggs sealed the door behind them with a timed charge, Reese turned back. Through the narrow slit, he saw one of the Whispers watching him, expressionless. Not charging. Just watching. Then the charge blew, sealing the entrance in dust and fire. Breathless, Cale looked at Reese. We're not just fighting a virus anymore. We're fighting an intelligence. Reese nodded grimly. And it knows we're coming. Back at Outpost Ember, the mood was tense. The strike team's return should have brought hope, but instead, it carried a darker weight. Everyone had seen infected before. But Whispers? That was something else. Reese paced beside the strategy table as Cale reported everything to Commander Brooks. They didn't act like infected. They didn't even attack right away, she said. They were observing us. Hurting us. Like they were waiting for the right moment. Brooks studied the map. We've seen scattered reports of strange behavior from the infected. But never anything this organized. You sure they weren't just smarter survivors, turned and twisted? Reese stepped forward. No. Their eyes were vacant, but their movements were sharp. Controlled. And one of them, it let us go. It had the drop on us but didn't take the shot. Brooks said nothing for a long time. Then he leaned over the table and spoke in a low voice. There's something we've kept classified. Months ago, one of our northern teams intercepted a transmission, military-grade, encrypted. Origin unknown. It said just one word, repeated 3 times, assimilation. Cale narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? We thought it was corrupted data. But now. I think it was a warning. The word lingered in the air. The next 2 days were spent in preparation. Reese trained with the other fighters, learning to adapt, to move silently, to fight in tighter formations. The Resistance tech crew combed through the data Wes recovered from Fort Silo's half-erased logs. And then they found something. Cale burst into the planning room holding a salvaged hard drive, her eyes wide with urgency. There's a second facility connected to Fort Silo. A research annex called Section Gray. Hidden deeper underground. It wasn't just a weapons depot, it was a testing site. Testing for what? Reese asked. Cale dropped the drive onto the table and pulled up a projection, a series of files, marked BIO Phase 9. Hybrid intelligence experiments, she said. The military wasn't just trying to fight the infection, they were trying to control it. To weaponize it. They called it cognitive preservation. Taking infected brains and stimulating neural pathways. Trying to see if they could be guided. Directed. Wes looked pale. They created the Whispers. Or at least helped them evolve faster, Cale finished. A heavy silence filled the room. Brooks slammed his fist on the table. So we're not just fighting a virus. We're fighting the ghosts of our own damn mistakes. Everyone turned to Reese. What do you think? Cale asked him quietly. I think we've just uncovered the reason this war isn't over, Reese replied. And why it's not just a fight for survival anymore, it's a fight for control. That night, Reese couldn't sleep. He stood on a watchtower built into the outer edge of the bunker. The sky above was a swirl of cloud and moonlight. He watched the forest beyond the outpost, where shadows moved too slowly to be the wind. Then he saw them. 3 figures, standing just at the edge of the trees. Still. Watching. They didn't advance. They didn't flinch under the light. just stood there, like statues carved from silence. Reese reached for his weapon, but paused. He realized something chilling: they weren't there to attack. They were sending a message. He descended the ladder and rushed to Kale. "We have to move," he said. "They know where we are. They're not attacking yet because they want us afraid. They want us unsure. And when they strike, it'll be coordinated." Kale nodded grimly. "Then we don't wait for the war to come to us. We take it to Section Grey." Brooks agreed. "If we shut it down, whatever tech remains, whatever systems they're using to evolve, we might have a shot." "And if it's already too late?" Juno asked from the shadows. Reese looked around at the faces of those who'd lost everything, and still chose to fight. "Then we make sure they know one thing," he said. "Dead America isn't done fighting yet." The plan was simple. In and out. Reese didn't believe in simple plans. At dawn, the strike team departed again, smaller this time, tighter. Just Reese, Kale, Riggs, Wes, and Juno. Keller stayed behind with Brooks to help prepare the outpost's defenses in case the unthinkable happened while they were gone. The entrance to Section Grey wasn't marked on any map, but Kale had decoded enough from the silo's logs to estimate its location, roughly 10 miles south of the ruins, buried beneath what used to be a pharmaceutical distribution center. The building was hollowed out and sunken, its roof collapsed, leaving only twisted girders and cracked tile. But the concrete shaft leading down, obscured by fallen debris, was unmistakably reinforced military tech. Riggs cleared the rubble in less than 10 minutes. The tunnel beneath was black, wide, and humming faintly with power. The walls were smoother here. Polished. It wasn't an ordinary bunker. It was a lab, built to last. Whatever had started here, it wasn't abandoned like the others. Not fully. Wes deployed his drone again, its spotlight flickering as it scanned ahead. The tunnel sloped down sharply, leading to a sealed steel door. Words printed above it were still legible through dust and rust. "Section Grey, restricted access, no return without order." "Comforting," Riggs muttered as he rigged the door's controls. The team slipped inside. Section Grey was a maze of glass and steel, empty corridors echoing with faint mechanical hums. Emergency lights pulsed dimly overhead, powered by an independent generator system still operational. Files littered the floors, medical beds with restraints stood idle, and observation rooms overlooked dry tanks, some cracked, others stained. "This isn't a lab," Juno whispered. "It's a prison." They moved deeper, through biolocks and reinforced doors, until they reached the main terminal chamber. Screens lined the walls, many shattered, but a few still pulsing with static. Wes rushed to the console and connected his system. "I've got logs, some voice files too. Surveillance footage partially intact. It's fragmented, but, wait, here." He tapped the screen. A video played, scientists in hazmat suits, surrounding a restrained figure on a table. The infected subject wasn't snarling or flailing, it lay still, its eyes darting back and forth. Then a voice. "This is Dr. Emmerich Shaw. Date, 4 days before total breach. The subject, designated Whisper 7, has exhibited the ability to mimic speech patterns and respond to visual commands. This may be evidence of retained intelligence. We must continue stimulation. We must know how far they can think." The footage cut to static. Another file loaded, this time, only audio. "It's watching us now. Not responding. Just watching. Like it's waiting. We underestimated them. They don't want to be cured. They want to replace us." A cold silence filled the lab. "Guys," Wes said, fingers still frozen over the keyboard, "there's something else." He pulled up a heat map of the facility. Most of the underground space was cold. But one sector, deep in the lowest level, was still active. Something's alive down there. Reese adjusted his gear. Let's find out what. They took the main elevator shaft, descending with only emergency lighting and the sound of their own breath. As they reached the final level, the doors slid open, revealing a scene none of them were prepared for. The floor stretched out like a surgical arena. Tall glass chambers lined the walls, each one filled with a strange fluid, and inside, silhouettes floated. Dozens. Hundreds. Those are growing chambers, Kale whispered. But the figures weren't twitching. They weren't infected. They were perfectly still. And some were human. Or used to be. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber. Cold, metallic, and without emotion. Welcome to Phase 10. From the shadows stepped a figure, tall, gaunt, wearing remnants of a lab coat. But its skin was pale, its veins pulsing with a faint green light. Its eyes were alert. It wasn't fully infected. It wasn't fully human. I am Emmerich Shaw, the figure said. Or what's left of him. Kale raised her weapon, but Reese held up a hand. You did this, Reese said. You created them. Shaw nodded. Yes. And now, I guide them. I taught them to listen. To learn. To remember. And soon, they will not need me at all. Reese took a step forward. Why? Shaw tilted his head. Because your world ended when it tried to cure what it didn't understand. Mine began when I embraced it. Without warning, the tanks around them began to stir. Shapes inside shifted. Eyes opened. Reese turned to the team. Fall back. But the chamber doors slammed shut. The war for the future of America had just walked into its darkest hour. The lights above flickered to blood red as alarms screamed through Section Gray. Every containment tank along the walls hissed, vapor seeping from their seams. Shapes shifted behind the glass, tall, humanoid figures, not fully human, not fully infected. Something new. Hybrids. Rigs, detonators. Reese shouted. Riggs scrambled to rig the entry point, but the elevator shaft was already sealing shut with blast doors. Locked in. Trapped. Can we blow through? Kale asked, backing toward a wall as the first containment unit cracked from within. Maybe. But not fast enough, Riggs growled. Juno took point, rifle aimed at the first emerging figure. The glass exploded outward, and the hybrid dropped onto all fours. Pale skin stretched over taut muscles, but its eyes gleamed with eerie awareness. It didn't charge. It studied. Then, it smiled. Reese opened fire. The shot took it in the head, but it didn't drop. It flinched, staggered, and stood. Headshots don't work? Wes yelled. Not fully, Kale said. Shaw said they're in Phase 10. That means regeneration. Keep moving. Reese barked. They split into formation, ducking between consoles and shattered tanks as more hybrids broke free. The entire room filled with a low, vibrating hum, like a shared frequency, a neural link. The hive. They're connected, Juno said. Every one of them. From the far side of the lab, Shaw watched calmly. His voice carried above the chaos. They are not mindless. They are not slaves. They are the next step. Reese grabbed a metal rod and hurled it into a power relay. Sparks flew. The lights flickered, briefly, breaking the flow of the humming vibration. The hybrids shuddered. Noise disrupts them, Reese realized. Frequencies. West dropped to his knees beside a control panel. I can boost the emergency broadcast, emit a sonic burst. It'll scramble their connection. You've got 1 minute. Kale yelled, unloading her rifle into the closest hybrid's chest. It slowed, but didn't fall. Riggs shoved a grenade down another's throat and kicked it backward. Boom, freak. The blast rocked the lab, spraying acidic fluid. Juno was slashed across the arm and dragged backward, but Reese was faster. He yanked her free and tossed a flashbang into the pursuing group. The light stunned them, but only for seconds. "Wes, now!" Reese shouted. Wes slammed his hand on the console. A deafening, high-pitched pulse filled the chamber. The hybrids froze, violently convulsing. Some collapsed. Others screamed, clawing at their heads. Even Shaw dropped to one knee, eyes rolling back. The lights exploded. For a few seconds, everything went black. Then, silence. Only the flicker of flames and the smell of burning wires remained. Reese helped Juno to her feet. "That bought us time." "Not enough." Riggs nodded toward the emergency ladder hatch in the corner. "Manual shaft. No power. Straight shot up. It's a climb, but it's our only way out." One by one, the team began to ascend. Kale pulled the last of her EMP grenades from her pack and set a timer. "Let's make sure they don't wake up again." They reached the surface just as the lab erupted below, shockwaves thundering through the ground. Dust and debris shot upward. A fireball chased them from the crumbling ruins. They didn't stop running until they reached the tree line. Behind them, Section Grey was buried again, but Reese knew it wasn't over. "They'll adapt," Kale said, panting. "You saw what they were." "Yeah," Juno muttered. "I saw. They're not done. And if Shaw survived?" "He'll come for us," Reese said, eyes locked on the rising smoke. "And next time, it won't be whispers in the dark. It will be a full-blown invasion." The silence that followed the destruction of Section Grey was short-lived. Within hours of their return to Outpost Vesper, strange signals echoed across long-dead communication lines, encrypted pulses mimicking military frequencies. Kale recognized them instantly. They matched the same pattern the hybrids had used to communicate underground. "They're broadcasting," she said grimly. "To others like them." Wes confirmed it. Shaw survived. And now he's activating whatever's left. Hidden pockets. Hives. Maybe even sleeper hybrids out in the wild. Reese stood over the map table, watching blinking red zones multiply in real time. "He's not just spreading chaos," Reese said. "He's trying to rebuild. Replace what we lost with what he controls." The infected, once mindless and scattered, were now coordinated. Small towns fell without warning. Survivor outposts were overrun by attackers that moved like units, flanking and hunting like trained soldiers. The infected had a leader now, and they were evolving. Outpost Vesper had become the last stronghold between the hybrid uprising and the western zones. Brooks addressed the survivors in the hangar that night. "We stand on the edge of extinction. Not because we're weak, but because something stronger is rising in the dark. We've seen it. We've fought it. But we're not done yet." Cheers echoed through the crowd, though fear lingered behind every voice. Reese and the core team prepared for the final push. The plan wasn't defense anymore, it was an assault. End the threat at the source. "We found it," Wes said. "The broadcast origin point. They're using a former naval satellite uplink station in Nevada. Buried. Fortified. But it's their new hive. That's where Shaw is." "How many will be there?" Kale asked. Wes looked pale. "Too many." Reese tightened his gloves. "Then we take what we've got, and we burn it down." They formed a convoy, 3 vehicles armored with scavenged metal plating, loaded with explosives, and armed survivors. Juno took sniper duty. Riggs manned the heavy cannon. Wes and Kale rode with Reese. As they crossed the wasteland, the skies turned gray. Smoke rose from cities lost to the hybrids. Far on the horizon, a signal tower blinked with an unnatural green glow. When they reached the outskirts of the satellite station, they saw it, a massive underground facility covered in hybrid-grown biostructures. Flesh merged with steel. Pulsing tendrils ran across the ground, feeding into the earth like roots. "It's alive," Juno whispered, eyes narrowing through her scope. "They've merged the infection with the station. They've built a living network," Kale muttered. The creatures patrolling outside were unlike anything they had seen, bigger, armored, semi-mechanical. Fused with remnants of old tech, their limbs clicked with hydraulic strength. Some even carried weapons, clumsily, but with intent. "They're learning from us," Riggs growled. "Fast." Reese didn't blink. "Then we end it before they become unstoppable." They launched the assault at dawn. The first wave of hybrids fell under heavy cannon fire and Juno's sniper rounds. But for every one dropped, two more emerged. The convoy slammed through the front barricade, breaching the outer facility. Inside, the corridors pulsed like veins, every wall lined with organic material. Explosives were planted at key nodes while Kale and Wes hacked into the broadcast core. It wasn't just a signal, it was a command hub, constantly updating hybrids across the country. "Upload a virus," Reese ordered. "Scramble it all." Wes typed furiously. "Done." "But Shaw's still here. Somewhere." As if summoned, a low rumble echoed through the facility. The walls trembled. From the core tunnel emerged Shaw, changed again. His body had fused with the bionetwork. Tubes ran from his spine into the walls, his voice no longer human, but deep and resonant, echoing through every inch of the hive. "You came to stop me, but you're already too late," he said. "This isn't just one nation's fall. It's the rise of a new order." Reese raised his rifle. "Not while I'm still breathing." "You won't be for long." Shaw's hybrids charged. The final battle had begun. Would you like to continue with the final part 8? The hybrids poured through the tunnels, dozens, maybe hundreds, each one deadlier than the last. The air inside the hive thickened, pulsing with energy as Shaw, now a monstrous fusion of man and infection, moved like a living conductor of death. "Fall back to the core," Reese yelled. The team formed a circle around Wes and Kale as they finished uploading the virus into the broadcast system. Juno fired with icy precision, dropping hybrids before they got too close. Riggs tossed incendiaries into the side corridors, lighting the fleshy walls with fire. "We're not getting out unless we blow this place to hell," Riggs grunted, slamming another charge into the floor. "We need a full collapse." "We can't do it remotely," Kale warned. "The core's shielding blocks the signal." "I'll stay," Reese said instantly. "No," Juno snapped. "There's another way." But Reese shook his head. "This is the job. We stop this now or no one gets out alive." Wes looked up from the console. "Virus is in. They'll start losing coordination in about a minute." As if reacting to the threat, Shaw let out a distorted scream. His voice echoed through the walls like thunder. "You cannot delete evolution." Then the walls began to tear open around them. Shaw emerged fully, his body grotesque, part flesh, part machine, part hive. Tentacles of living cable whipped out, striking near the core. "Go!" Reese roared, opening fire as he moved between Shaw and the others. Riggs grabbed Kale by the collar. "Move it. Now." The team ran. Only Juno hesitated. Reese turned back, catching her eyes. "You have to go," he said. "Tell them we fought. Tell them we didn't kneel." Tears welled up, but Juno nodded once, and disappeared down the tunnel. Inside the control chamber, Reese pulled the last detonator from his vest. As Shaw advanced, twisted and towering, Reese didn't flinch. "You tried to become something better," he whispered. "But we're still human. And we fight back. He pressed the trigger. Light swallowed the hive. The explosion cracked the earth above. Out in the desert, the ground split and roared as the hive collapsed inward. A massive shockwave threw dust into the sky, shaking mountains miles away. The convoy, parked a safe distance out, was silent as they watched the hive die. No hybrids emerged. No signal returned. It was over. 2 days later, Juno stood before a crowd of survivors at Outpost Vesper. Her voice was calm but fierce. We lost good people. Brave ones. But because of them, the tide has turned. The infected are scattered. Disconnected. For the first time in years, we're not running. Cheers erupted. Hope returned to tired faces. Riggs stood beside her, bruised and bandaged. If Reese could see this, he'd say we're not done, Cale replied. We rebuild. We take back what's ours. Wes smiled faintly. And we stay human. In the distance, the sun rose over the ruins of the hive, burning away the last of the shadows. Dead America wasn't gone. It was waking up. And it was ready to fight again. Would you like a cinematic photo prompt that matches this final scene for your audiobook thumbnail?